So we're gonna get into a little bit of things in space, and before we get to the UFO subject, I want to kind of laugh a little bit about NASA. And I don't know if you pay much attention to some of the Mars probes and their findings and the speculations. And years ago during the Clinton administration, they even announced, and this is a long time ago, but you can still find it, that they had found a Mars rock on Earth, which is real, because bits of planets get knocked off all the time and travel through space, and it's our closest little friend. And they looked at it and found some what looked like microbial fossils. And that's always been a point of controversy because you really can't prove it that much since there's no biological matter left. But NASA, and for very many years, for instance, I think it's not the Huygens probe, but the one of their probes that orbited Jupiter, or maybe it was Saturn, maybe so. Anyway, they crashed it on purpose for two different reasons. They threw it into the planet's atmosphere. It was the one orbiting Titan, which the Huygens probe, it's so hard to say, was the probe they sent down to see Titan, and which is I'll have somebody verify this, but I think it's a moon of Saturn, and they intentionally crashed it, and I say crashed because it never hit a solid surface. They threw it into the gas giant's atmosphere because they were afraid of contamination. And that means that even though these things are in clean rooms that make, probably the Wuhan virology lab look dirty, there's always going to be some form of bacteria, fungus, any kind of tiny organism that can attach itself. And actually, we've more recently found out that they can live in space. It doesn't even bother them. And that what they call panspermia, and that's not a derogatory or a lewd term, means that life can basically exist on asteroids in an innate state, like microbial life, and travel across the solar system, across light years and millions of years, and basically crash and go, oh, okay, well, I'll just live here. And recently NASA has said, a lot of the findings of the Mars probes have been possibly, if it was bacterial or microbial life, well, it's just contamination we transferred to Mars. But they've always known that. Like, if Mars, there are places on Earth that are called, that are like the volcanic vents underwater, and places that are been crushed by glaciers for millions of years, and Lake Vostok that's in Antarctica, which is like a mile or two down under the ice. They bring up water that hasn't seen daylight in millions of years, and is separated from the ocean, and yet there's life there. And those, and they're called extremophiles, and that's where a lot of research goes into extrasolar biology. And it's just funny to me how NASA finally admits maybe some of the crap we were seeing there was life, but we just kind of pooped it there when our probe landed. And we're going to see a lot of that, honestly. And the thing that they crash the probes for, that they always gripe about, is that somehow it's a bad thing. It may be a bad thing for their research, but to try to prove that there's microbial life. But in essence, it was going to happen, and there's no way that we could really prevent it. Just because it's just you have to be too perfect in order to possibly never transfer, something, that Louis, Pasteur had to prove that existed. There are microbes. You're just not going to be able to avoid it. And NASA needs to find other means of, finding sources of life that are a little bit more aggressive than like going through the ice on Europa and finding something in the underground ocean that's bigger than a microbe. But no doubt there is life, but at the same time, they're kind of peddling to going nowhere when they concentrate on finding microbial life, when they send it there themselves. And I have no doubt that will always be a point of controversy.
So ultimately,
yeah.
I wouldn't say contaminants, but the cross species, if you will, or whatever, however you want, like
Cross
that.
contamination.
Yeah, I guess if that's how you want to say it. But that was
It's
done
like chicken and
by
raw beef. You just don't want to put them together.
like NASA actually did that themselves. Is basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the whole point of their probes was to find microbial life, as that was some kind of proof. And really, it was almost impossible for them to get their instruments there on such a perfect level that that would never be an issue. Because I don't think they expected many years ago, because actually the first probe that landed with its own rockets landed just about on my birthday in 1976, which was Viking. And Viking actually sent back positive tests, and they just said, nah, it's probably wrong. Our instruments weren't so good. But they had no reason to think that they were off. In fact, the test didn't search for microbes. They searched for basically different uh, different reactions from like the tests that they were doing for any kind of life. And there's a very good chance that there probably is all kinds of microbial life on Mars. It has the temperature, doesn't have much atmosphere, but we know that life on Earth can take unbelievable punishment and live in almost unimaginable temperatures. And sure, it's there, but I think NASA needs to get a little bit more aggressive with their plans, because there are way better places to go to. They need to dump Mars, is what I'm saying. Screw Mars. We've been there 50 times, and it's turned up nothing. And people are tired of rooting for little robot Sonny on Mars. We would like to see you go somewhere else, NASA, please. I mean, Voyager left. The Voyager 1 and 2 are now gone from our solar system, and it's time that we go somewhere else.
Well,
And
yeah.
somewhere else to find life may be here.
There's like what tardigrades. Um,
Yeah,
like they can
you can't kill
survive.
them.
Yeah. In fact, there was, if I remember right, Russia back in the '60s actually strapped I want to say it was a chimp.
They
It was
had
a
a dog.
couple. Well, they
Yeah, they
strapped
also
him
had
to
a.
the
We
outside.
did the chimp.
No, they actually. I'm trying to remember. Somebody strapped chimps to the outside of a rocket, and they actually survived the. Like they weren't actually shooting up into space, but it got into the atmosphere. Like it was an incredible amount of
That
like.
poor chimp.
Yeah, it survived like I don't know how many G forces. It died like 3 days later, but like, which is kind of crazy. But the tardigrades for sure are something that.
Well, the tardigrades are almost unkillable. They can be microwaved. They can be freeze dried. They can be bombarded with radiation. They can be. They were living on the outside of the shuttle. They were living on the surface of the space station, like outside in space, alive. Just just that, let that be a lesson to you people that say there's not life everywhere. Oh, dude, life is so much more powerful and aggressive. To think that we're alone is just, to me, is almost silly, because life itself is a super virus, and there's no way we can stop things from happening. Just ask Florida and say what happened to their snake problem.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So leading into that, I'll just jump into the UFO thing, because it's also a quick deal. This week, it's run on most of the stations. Everybody from the Rising, between Sauger's really all over it, and so is Crystal, to Tucker Carlson. They've been, because this is really a security and a Defense Department issue. If we get crap flying around, we don't know what it is. It does crap, we can't even chase it. It does amazing these craft. Well, that's a serious security problem. It's like, hey, yeah, we can't trace those, whatever that is. It was flying over the White House, but we can't catch it, so I guess it can just do what it wants. Yeah, that's a problem for anybody, for any nation. And so recently they released a 2019 piece of video from a battleship, if I'm not wrong, and some of its fighters, where they have and this is not, it's of course black and white because it's recorded footage, but this is This item not only appears on radar, but visually, the pilots are looking at it. It was a spherical thing that was hauling ass, descended very slowly to the ocean, made almost a complete stop, hovered, and went straight down into the water. Not crashed into the water, stopped, and went bloop straight down. And they also talk about and this is actually very true. There are many instances of our marine fleets, our submarines, and other battleships tracking many items under the water. They call them USOs, unidentified submerged objects, going multiple hundreds of knots, 700 knots underwater. Now, knots don't translate exactly to miles, but let's just say we have nothing that can move that fast underwater. Just,
do we even have anything that can go that deep?
Well, we don't. Some of the things they were tracking, they were so fast that we don't know how deep they are. But there is a limitation to. James Cameron is actually one of the very few people, because he had the cash to fund it, actually went to Challenger Deep, which, if I'm not wrong, is like 7 miles below the surface.
Yeah.
Basically, kind of in one of the Marianas Trenches kind of things. And of course, there's all kinds of crazy life down there that we've oh my God, what is that?
God, I would hate that. So anxiety.
Oh yeah, just even his thing, like one of his his viewport even cracked.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Like, we're talking thousands and thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch. I think it's even in like the 13 or 14. Like, literally, it's like an elephant standing on like a pin against your skin. It's just like it's unbelievable pressure.
That right would be like my personal hell.
Yeah, like, please get off. I don't know. The elephant just fell through me. So, but other than just the deep thing, this is becoming very interesting, because what it shows you is that these things are not radar anomalies. These things are not sonar anomalies. These things are, once again, being actively tracked, actively pursued, and they are being actively investigated by our military, not because they think it's a Russian spy sub that flies and dives like a Bond car. It's because they aren't able to catch these things. They aren't able to reproduce. The G-forces and the movements would not only destroy some of our computer equipment, but they would turn a person into jello. And these things are continuing to come out. We're still excited about June and to see what the report that was part of a stimulus that was for the Defense Department. And so these leaks kind of are really awesome, and they are fully confirmed by the Pentagon as being authentic. And although we're still looking at kind of blurry, images that, blah, 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 I think what is reported and what's supposed to be released is they have many pieces of video and evidence that aren't so blurry.
So let's say they do, they release information, and, probably much like a retraction that you would see on Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson, they'd hide it, only at a website buried somewhere. Something you have to actually look for to find it. If they don't,
it would be different because the retraction is different. You can't. This is coming. These videos and a lot of these verifications are coming from Luis Elizondo, who is a Defense Department contractor being paid by the U.S. government to basically investigate these things. It's not a Project Blue Book. These were top secret stuff.
No, I'm saying with the hearing, if they don't bury it like that, or if they don't say, oh yeah, it's free out there, you just have to go look for it, and a majority.
Well, how
of
many times
won't.
Can they bury it? See, and I'll tell you the difference between the last over 70 or 80 years of saying it's birds or it's this or it's swamp gas. You got to remember the swamp gas one.
I remember that. Or
70 or 80 years of them making excuses because they were, especially on all these war fronts, they were afraid to admit that there were things that they couldn't shoot down, that they couldn't protect Americans
Okay, but
from.
this is what I'm saying though, is like if they can't do it or if they don't do it, how do you think? And they say like, all right, yeah, here it is. This is what we know. And to be honest, we don't know much. And they actually say that like we have had no contact with this, um, with anything, but we have had these anomalies that have appeared. Do you think
Well, I think there's definitely going to be a level of truth. You know what I mean? It's like, no conspiracy aside, there doesn't have to be a conspiracy. They've been hiding this stuff from people for a long time, even from other agencies,
Right,
even
right.
from,
Okay,
you
let me
know,
get to the question. Let me get to the question to ask you. So if it does come out, and again, we have this like they come out and say, yes, this is what we have, but we don't really have a whole, we don't know anything about them. We don't know anything about, you know, um, exactly what
conclusive
these.
to share.
Yeah. Does the average American or this average Earth citizen do they become panicked about the fact that we don't?
I don't
I mean,
think
like
so.
that technically becomes scarier than a terrorist. I mean, really, because they
Well,
could
but
just
they don't
decide to.
necessarily attribute anything bad
They don't. No,
directly to
no.
any of these things.
Or let me throw this out.
I don't see a panic.
Or do we not trust our governments and say, no, you guys have had contact with them? How do you
Right.
see it
And
going? Like, do you see them believing
I
that
think,
or not?
well, I don't think they'll go that far. I honestly don't. I don't. I think that what is being leaked as far as what Elizondo and the other people, there are multiple people within the military, high-level people, CIA people that are retired and coming out, and I think it's kind of one of those things where they go, we've been hiding this stuff for 70 years. If they admit that they have some kind of super technology, it it may it may cause other problems that aren't associated with people and panicking, because I really, just like I said, I don't think they can even understand what they have, because it's like giving an iPad to Julius Caesar and saying, okay, make more. It, I think the biggest limitation to what we're going to get is basically making the U.S. government guilty of something. In other words, I think what they're going to share with us is real, because it's just been so many years, and because it fits within
What do you
our
mean?
understanding.
What do you mean the U.S.
Huh?
government guilty of something?
Because there have been so many incidents, and I know a lot of people who are interested in this very recently, that you would be amazed at the actual history and the incidents. Like in 1952, there were UFOs flying repeatedly over the U.S. Capitol. They scrambled jets and chased them over and over. There were congressional hearings
Right.
on television with it. It was on the front cover of Time magazine. This wasn't Space Nut magazine. This wasn't Amazing Stories.
No, no.
These things were,
Again, though, how does that become like the government's
well, because
guilty
it
of
means if
something?
they make them so obvious that they've been lying about things for so long, that the truth is so immense, if they were to tell us the whole deal, it would make them look even more deceptive, more uh, more evil, basically, and have people trust the government even less than before. I think it would cause more problems. With a little bit of truth leaked, it allows them to act like they're sharing recent, because they're not talking about old stuff. This is all new stuff, like from 2004
Right,
and
right,
on.
right.
So it's easier for them to let go of newer stuff, especially since it's let's say documented in a visual fashion, and they say this really happened. It's kind of like you let a little truth grow, and it satiates the people who are worried that, their government's just been like. But we all know they have been. I don't know. I mean, I'm not
I mean, I
worried
think
about
if
how
they're
much
if
they're
they're
going to
go-
give me.
I think if they're gonna release anything anyway, that proves that point that they've been hiding stuff.
Well, we all know that, but we know our government doesn't tell us the truth about some things.
Does
I think
and
there have been
some of it
multiple reasons.
we have to. I mean, some of it they don't tell us for good reason. To be honest, I mean,
Right,
there's some stuff for
exactly.
good reason.
There's a digestible amount of it that the public, we are ready to accept the fact that there are other things
What do
out there.
what do you think about the character assassination of Bob Lazar by people
Bob Lazar,
like
right.
Joe Rogan
Well, he was,
recently?
well, Well, Joe Rogan didn't necessarily do a character assassination.
No,
Joe
it
Rogan,
was a
he's
guest.
really bad about following another person's opinion and reinforcing them to continue talking. I don't think by any ways and means that Joe Rogan disbelieves something about Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar's story is actually pretty boring. And I've seen exactly what you're talking about. Joe gets some things wrong in the story, and so did the guy who was try to do a little debunking on him. They don't remember the story. They don't remember exactly what they said. He said Bob said they met aliens. He did not say that. He absolutely did not. He said he read a document that said that there was this encounter between some Marines and basically the Marines were killed. And he never said he met anything. He said maybe there was a dead one in a room, but he was being escorted by guards, and he only glanced. And he said, I'm not sure what I saw.
He did talk about seeing a lot of like technology that he had never seen
Right.
before, and
Basically, the
what they had
S4
said.
site and the multiple hangars that look like the side of a sandy desert, and they just open up bunkers. And he was not allowed to go to any other hangar but the one he was working on, but he was able to see the shape of the other craft and ones that were damaged. And then he was also allowed to see one test flight up close. Then all it did was go up for a little bit, go back and forth, and it was like a person controlling it with like some weird headset. And so
what they had said about him is that that's what the guy on Joe Rogan, I remember who it is, said that wasn't true. That somebody who knows him and knew his job was that he basically just scanned IDs all day at the entrance to one of the facilities, and that was his job to check radiation levels.
That's like he said, she said crap. Let me tell you how many freaking grifters there are on Roswell. There are so many book grifters on Roswell. There's a book called The Day After Roswell, written by a guy who was in Navy or he was in Army intelligence or something, and he wrote it right before he died and was going to tell the truth. It is the most asinine story. He's like, yeah, fiber optics, we got that from them aliens. Yeah, lasers, we got that from the aliens. Dude, we developed fiber optics in like the 20s when they were trying to understand phones. Like all of these things that this guy said were grifted technology, everything was such a just digestible lie that you could tell this guy is Philip J. Corso was the guy, and he's an absolute scam artist.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Lazard is in that range or anything like that. What I'm saying, or what I'm asking though, is like, do you think that is maybe debunking is a better word?
No, that's Lazar was
let me finish the question.
Okay.
The debunking of what Lazar is saying is part of a bigger picture. Like, hey, we're gonna get a few people out into some rather mainstream
disinformation
media.
People.
Yes.
Right.
And we're gonna do it so
there are
boring.
Documented disinformation people. I mean, people who worked for the Air Force. There was actually one guy who drove another guy, and I don't think he was misinterpreting what he was hearing as encrypted radio transmissions. It was just the U.S. government. But he found basically a channel that nobody was using on U.S. soil and reported it as basically an alien signal. And then he went to the Air Force about it. And then he met a guy who was going to help him investigate that basically destroyed his mind. And I don't mean by any magic ways. He ruined the guy's life, and the guy killed himself. And he was a decorated veteran. And they did it to basically let this guy go around and talk about all this alien stuff that he found to make the field look like a bunch of jackasses. And he did his job. That's what he was paid by the Air Force to do. So there are those people, but remember, all these physicists everything from SETI. Look at SETI. You got Seth. What's his name that runs the SETI? Well, he's
Oh
actually
yeah, Seth, what's
retired
his
from it.
name? No, no, I'm just
But
messing with
but
you. But no, I agree.
but
I don't.
SETI basically was depending upon U.S. funding, and after all these years of listening through radio telescopes, they've got nothing. Well, really, would aliens talk on a limited crap version of radio signals? No, they wouldn't do that at all. I mean, and we understand why they wouldn't do that now as well. The science was there to study stars and all kinds of
Yeah.
radio instruments, but they were those people that always said, well, that's just stupid and silly. We're going to find the aliens doing this. I mean, literally, it's some of these scientists saying, no, 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 we're going to find it through this means, when in actuality, they didn't, they got scooped. And so a lot of those people, just like all the people who say they won't have light speed travel, like, well, we can't travel faster than light because once you have infinite mass, you can't do that. It doesn't matter, because now we realize that actually creating Alcubierre drive, which is basically a warp space bubble, is a reality, and Einsteinian physics allows for it. And you'll see articles all the time about how the warp drive is becoming more of a reality as our math and our technology gets better. That's probably how we're going to travel faster than light.
Right.
So I mean,
no, and I mean, look, I think the thing that completely discredits all of it is the probe guy. Um, the probe guy you hear about all the time, and that's or the crop circles.
The abduction people, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah, they're not abducting people in the
those
millions.
kind of things like that. That is what kind of discredits it. But I do think that like there's some definite realism there.
There are always
But
going to be
again, I just
crazy
go back
people.
to my question though. Do you think that there is a calculated misinformation?
I don't think now it's calculated misinformation. I think it's calculated amount of information. I don't think they'll tell us too much.
Like the guest, and again, I wish I knew his name because I didn't even think the line of questioning would follow this, but like you think it was just like a happy accident that guy appeared on Joe Rogan and was kind of shitting on all of this?
Well, Joe Rogan leads a lot of his guests, especially a lot of his scientists, into like the for instance, like he'll have a guy on who's he's a paleontologist, and then he'll bring up the fact that these religious guys or these other guys who are like flat earthers or dinosaurs are all a lie or the earth is 6,000 years old.
Right.
And it gets those guys into a frenzy, and scientists tend to overextend. Like the scientists will say, oh, sure, life exists all over the universe and blah, blah, blah. But it couldn't have, but we've never had a visit, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's them protecting their own scientific integrity, and at the same time, they'll use their ad hominem attacks to try to debunk something that they can't debunk really, because neither thing is provable up until it is.
Well, and let's be honest, like that's what science is. I mean, that's why science is so great, in my opinion, is like they try to
and another thing is none of these scientists that have ever spoken out have ever had access to any technology, supposedly, and Bob Lazar has. And they're mad because Lazar is he's a documented scientist. You don't work for JPL. That's NASA's like rocket science league, just because you're a faker. He's got tax forms that say he paid taxes for EG&G. EG&G is a company who does black book research for the Department of Naval Intelligence. So if he has a tax form, how can you debunk that he said he worked on these things? Oh, he was just a door guy. Really? They had a door guy checking IDs that worked for JPL for rocket research? Wow, that's some pretty high qualifications you have to check door IDs. That's the whole thing.
You would be surprised to know that NASA did at one point have some people on their list or on their payroll who were doing LSD with dolphins and, yes, jacking them off. And that is true.
The CIA did. They were strapping bombs to dolphins.
NASA did. They were trying to communicate. It was I can't remember the science. It was Carl Sagan. He actually wanted to come up with a form to communicate with a different language and thought, well, dolphins. Let's try to
Right.
communicate. So
Into kind of animal
um,
communication research.
they funded this group. There was like 3 or 4 scientists, and one of them like decided to do acid one night, and he was like, "Wow, this is amazing. Let me try to do
Give a
acid."
dolphin acid.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they discovered while they were doing this with the dolphins, they were like, "Well, man, these like this one dolphin, they had 2 females and 1 male. They're like, he wants to have sex all the time." And they had to keep moving him to go have sex with the female dolphins and kept bringing him back. It was such an arduous process that one of the female scientists who worked with the male dolphin was like, "I'll just jack him off." But but yes, it's, at one point NASA did pay.
My God, you're destroying my whole. Like,
No, no, I'm just saying, like you would never
well,
think
we have
that would
invested.
happen.
Remember, the CIA and NASA has indulged scientists like the remote locators of people who can go sit in a dark room and imagine exactly what GPS location that some Russian nuclear asset is. Or they'll have the whole movie Men Who Stare at Goats, the one where they try to psychically explode that's a real story, by the way.
It is,
And
yeah, yeah.
it's about of guys who tried to psychically explode the heart of a goat so the CIA could potentially assassinate people from a distance. And if you've seen, well, it's like what's
Now
the boys?
most of those were all
The eighth
grifts
season of the
too,
boys
though.
where the woman explodes those guys' heads, like in court. That's what the CIA was trying to do. So of course there have been ridiculously stupid programs that the CIA tried to invest into that had to do with like pre-science research. Before there's any science, how do we invest? Are psychics real? Guess what? They don't fund that shit anymore.
Well,
Any of it.
and like either grifts or massive like just miscommunications. Like for instance, the dolphin thing. Like when Carl Sagan found out what they were trying to do, he was like, he basically was like, "You idiots! I didn't say
Yeah.
try to communicate with them. I'm saying try to understand their language. You're not going to want to
Right,
talk
because
to a
our
dolphin."
language, in order to communicate, has a particular. Every language on Earth, it doesn't matter if you're Chinese or whatever, it all follows a pattern, and
Yeah.
it's a pattern of the usage of particular words to create and every human language falls into a category. And when they finally did the study on dolphins, it didn't happen. It didn't happen at all because there's a certain kind of data that has to be transferred in order, or a certain kind of pattern has to be transferred to receive information back and forth as we understand it. And dolphins do not do that. Not that they're not smart, not that they can't communicate, but it has nothing to do with how we transfer information, vocally or on paper or anything. So
And yeah, the
a
whole the
lot of
whole
these
goal was
programs
just
were
trying
done
to
by.
study their language, and it was like you said, like kind of a complete like misinformation. They obviously should not have hired the scientists that they did.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
it's a
just like
funny side
Ghostbusters.
story,
When
but
they can them at the beginning of the movie, they're doing the psychic research, but those guys know it's kind of a joke. Like Peter Venkman is really just trying to get laid. He's going, yeah, I can't believe you guessed all this right. To that
right,
bubblegum
right,
blowing
right, right.
hot girl. Yeah,
Yes.
there are no psychics in this world, and you know why? Because none of them have won the lottery. That's all you need to know. Like they couldn't even guess a few numbers in a row. Okay, so I'm just telling you that all the American government, just like every other government, especially during a power race where anything
Well,
that
you
can be
do
used as
anything,
a power
yes.
against another government, huh?
I said, yeah, you do anything you can, and but like, and
Right.
that's the only thing like where um I would believe that if they came out, did a press conference, said this is what we found on the UFO, this is what we have on UFOs, and but we don't have much. We don't have anything besides like videos and this and that. We have no communication. We have, I would actually believe that because it would,
Yeah, they might just tell us the totality of
because yeah, like if they did, you think like maybe we would have like some cool laser weapons or something. I don't know, like.
it. Well, I'll put it this way. I agree with Lazar in one way. that makes absolute logical sense. And I know his complete history. I know he's even had some run-ins with the law, but they were associated with him investing in a brothel, and he was doing computer work for this brothel, and they got audited. And and the thing is, the U.S. government has come after him for the most ridiculous things over and over, like investigated him on a terrorism charge because he was making fireworks across state lines. So they've had their eye on him and have fucked with him many times to a level that most people would never get that kind of attention. But
Maybe.
he specifically says that they tried to study this craft, and it was so, everything from the alloy to the way it was built to the way it moved to how it worked was so alien to them. And I don't mean it was bubbles of goo and they had to press them. I mean, everything was so simple and yet so they couldn't even understand what it was made of. I mean, and that's where we talked about metamaterials before. I think that if anything, the things that we've recovered, found, if there have been, have guided us in ideas. It's kind of like in Terminator when they find that T-100's chip and they get it and they go, well, we couldn't reproduce it because it's broken, but it gave us new ideas. That's kind of where I think they would be able to benefit from it. But they're never, I think it's so foreign and so advanced, it's literally just, it's an iPhone in the hands of a caveman. And they may even be indirectly honest when they say, we don't really know, even if, we haven't been talking to Mr. Gray over here, and Mr. Gray wants to butt probe a bunch of you. Is that cool?
I think that's a fair assessment.
That's pop culture. That's pop culture.
And there was the whole story. I don't want to get into it because honestly, we got to end the show. But like the whole, like, I didn't even know this conspiracy. You were telling me about it, like the aliens working with the Nazis, and it's like, well, why would they do that? Like what's in it for them?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the Nazis were doing the most evil and unscrupulous research possible.
Even if the aliens didn't care, there's just still nothing that the Nazis could offer the like. There's a great saying that I used to say with my, this is gonna make me sound horrible, but I used to say with like my girlfriend and now my wife, I'd be like, give me something that I can't take. And that's the same thing. Like the aliens would just be like, well, what are you gonna give me that I can't take? Like
right. And even some of the lore associated with supposed meetings between, like, Eisenhower. There's a big story around Eisenhower meeting with it. They basically said, we'll give you some technology if you let us steal a few people. And, like I said, that is a story. It's a real story within the UFO community.
It's a ridiculous story, yeah. Because
well, Eisenhower did visit a base off of a supposed. He was supposed to be on vacation. No, right.
They could just take they could have just taken Eisenhower.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to think every movie you've ever seen about aliens coming to, like, take our planet, there's a billion planets out there that are just as beautiful as Earth that don't have people you got to get rid of.
Right.
And if they're they're not hungry and wanting to eat people, because boy, oh boy, the smorgasbord would be on. I'll send them to China first. It's kind of like, all that's just stupid. It does seem like that's why my personal opinion, it's like, my personal opinion is just these things are literally just unmanned probes from literally, it could be the other side of the universe. And they're just looking for information. Like, ooh, there's a civilization there. Let's check it out and send the data back. They're not doing it for reconnaissance.
See,
I was saying they're not doing it for reconnaissance.
Or even maybe, I'm not 100% buying into it, but I could see myself going down the rabbit hole of saying, or maybe saying, hey, once these guys reach a certain place in technology, then, kind of the whole I think it's Star Trek, isn't it? That, like, once we discovered,
we can meet the old galactic empire kind of shit.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like,
I don't think so either. That sounds fun, but we are the most evil, destructive freaking. We humans are born from a predator. There's a reason that we conquered, even when we were cavemen,
That's
we
probably
got
true.
together and figured out how to beat a lion to death
That's
instead
probably
of
true.
hiding in the trees. We figured out how to forge something into a sword to be the ultimate slayer of man.
Now we
We've
are
developed nuclear weapons to kill each other.
we
That's
are
what we
though.
made. So
I was just gonna say, like, we are like all completely different, though. I mean, you know.
yeah, but every form of life, and this is a very scientific principle. Every form of life, in a predatory sense, predators are the smartest things on the planet. And I mean, there are no grazers. Elephants
Yeah.
are really smart, but only to a certain extent. They're also huge, and their mass keeps them safe, really. But every super intelligent piece of life on Earth is a predator. And it's not just because of the protein intake, it's because in order to be the most efficient killer, you also have to increase your brain size.
It's
Because you have to be
evolution. Yeah.
faster and stronger and quicker than your prey. So we're going to just assume that every other super intelligent species out there at one point in their evolution was born of a predator. And so, believe it or not, we may be more similar to other life forms that are intelligent than you would think. And if that's the case, which I do believe, and most scientists kind of believe on that extrapolation, that if we were to meet someone else, it would be bad. Just
Yeah. I
period.
mean, I don't
Because
know.
anything that's, if
Because
they're
I
so
just think
far
if you
beyond that
have to.
that we're not a threat, the only other option is that they're just interested in studying life generally like we are.
I mean, well, I think we get to a point, even interesting sidebar conversation. I don't know. This is a horrible time to bring this up, considering Palestine and Israel right now. But I don't know if we're ever going to see like another world war, unless some major fallout happens before that. But like you think about it, we're not gonna mess with China. China's not gonna mess with us. Same thing with
Right.
Russia, Germany, Australia. Anything that has like a fairly working economy is not going to go to war
We're too
with.
dependent upon each other in a
Exactly.
global sense.
Exactly.
And
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 I
the,
feel like
yeah,
you would kind of get that way though too. Like if there were like aliens, like they could say, hey, I don't know how, we don't know logistics. We don't even know if these things exist, but let's say they did. I don't know if they could just bring an entire fleet here. You know what I'm
they wouldn't
saying?
have to.
Like
They wouldn't have to.
we
You're
don't
talking
know
about
anything about
the
them, but
energy involved with transversing one part of the universe in a bubble of space-time. You can literally go any multiple of the speed of light you want. It's not like you have to get smarter to go faster. Once you achieve basically a bubble of space-time, the Star Trek warp drive, that's stupid, and I'll tell you why it's stupid. It's because they're limited to warp 9. There is no limit to how fast you can go. You are in a slipstream, and you can go as fast as you want to. That means you can traverse one side of the universe to another instantly. There's no travel time. It's boom, boom. And so that kind of travel requires a lot of energy. Believe it or not, it's nowhere near the energy of actually traveling sublight speed, which is weird, but that's Einstein. And if they have that kind of control over energy, they could literally blow up a planet with a fart. There's no comparison between our civilization and theirs. We are still just mad monkeys poking a stick at our planet at this point, where they are people who can literally build star systems if they want to. That's the difference between us and them.
right.
We are never going to be a threat, and if we ever were, they just killed us for fun, not not for
Well,
any other
and that's
reason.
and that's the thing. Like, why would I mean
Right? Why
we
would
don't
they
go
waste their
around
time?
even if or we don't go around like trying to find like a a pack full
An
of
anthill to
kittens.
crush.
Yeah, I mean there are some really messed up people who are into that, but for the most part,
Right, and, and
you
and
try to
that's the
see
whole
the
point where I say it's probably something way more simple and way less devious than you can possibly. It's like, remember, like I said, we've been shooting out radio signals for over 100 years. That means a
right.
100 light year bubble around Earth that you can kind of listen to our chatter. And so That's a pretty big bubble to fly through in a galaxy that's 100,000 light years across. That means all you have to do is have a probe travel in 1/1000th of the diameter, and you can detect us screaming our crap. So it's just a simple game of, if there's 20 different advanced civilizations in this galaxy alone at this time, they're just going to send a probe like we send one to Mars to look at the monkey people.
Right.
I think it's really that simple.
No, I think you're right.
And if we talk about AI being advanced now, imagine AI in a civilization that's 1,000,000 years in the future. I mean, there's almost no limits to the intelligence that something the size of a car, an automobile, could contain. It's limitless. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So it would be so much more advanced. We can't even conceive of the differences, and we're just in interest of looking at something under a microscope like anything else, and the chances of somebody coming to want our planet or even trying to kill us or eat us or probe our buttholes.
Well, like we have, we have a satellite that I think is gonna leave our solar system soon, or already did.
No, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are already past the heliosphere. Okay. They are gone.
So
they're
yeah. Right. If they interacted with a planet, like, those people might say, "Oh crap," or those beings, "Look at that! What is that thing? Holy crap! There's aliens who are gonna attack us." But it's like we have no way to get to.
Well,
like, it's so far away. We don't know how to get there.
The disc that Carl Sagan and by the way, Sagan was a little too hardcore. He there's a lot of things. I've read a few of Sagan's books. A Candle in the Darkness, and let's see, a few other ones. Sagan was a man of his time, and he was a dedicated scientist with no imagination whatsoever. Right. And it's not good for a scientist to have too much imagination, but it's also not a benefit for them to have none, because he's kind of stuck until he's fed more straight facts. And let's just say that all those preconceptions of how much life and how much there should be out there have drastically changed. It wasn't until the 1990s when we detected the first exoplanet, the first other planet orbiting a star. And it was a super giant gas planet that was spinning around a star really fast and heating up. And it was causing the star to wobble because its own gravitation was pulling on the star. But now we can see that we can count the number of little rocky planets around a star system now. And we realized, oh shit, our own galaxy is full. Every solar system we run into has planets. They're everywhere. There's a ton of them in the habitable zones. There's a ton of them around red dwarfs.
Okay, yeah.
It's just like, so, and Sagan knew nothing about that.
Sure.
He knew nothing about how common water was everywhere, how common little rocky planets were around stars in the right place everywhere. So, it would have changed his perception about, I would say, solar life being very, very common, because the probability is simple.
All I'm arguing, or all I'm saying, is like, it's potential. They could only send a drone here anyway. Like, that might be.
Well, I don't think they want to come here. I don't think there's any point.
I'm just saying, even if they wanted to, they might not be able to yet. Like, same difference that we can send a satellite.
Oh, you mean if they encountered well, first of all, Voyager can't land anywhere.
Right. But let's say, we get to a point where we can. Well, we probably still won't be able to track it down or to go where it goes yet. And that could be where they're at too.
Oh, no, we couldn't backtrack it, because you have to know its origin. So, yeah, it better be written on the side of it.
Right. We would have
return to Omicron.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, like, if we did discover, like, oh yeah, this is real, and these are from aliens.
That's funny that you brought that up, because both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have the location of Earth. And it is a location that any alien could figure out very easily. There's a gold record on one of them, and the other one has a gold disc that has the imprint In gold, by the way, it will never degrade, and they will literally be in space for billions of years because gold is indestructible.
Well, this is because we're stupid.
No, yeah, but we have on that plate, believe it or not, I'm standing next to a giant poster of it. On that plate shows a man and a woman in a nude stance. Oh my God. And it has like both of them waving, showing male and female, and it also has this weird pattern of 7 dots and binary code next to each dot. And each strike that says in binary is the rotational speed of a pulsar in our galaxy. The reason that's important because that's a located radio source. And if you know anything about simple grid mathematics, you need 7 points, which includes the point of origin, to find any place in any space. So you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pulsars, and you can triangulate, and then the 7th point is Earth. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and the 7th point being Earth. So anybody who can visually read binary code, ones and zeros, can say, where are that? They listen to space. That's a pulsar. Bam, 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 bam. There's 6 more pulsars. There's Earth.
Again, though,
so
we just put a target on us, essentially, because we're kind of
Yeah,
dumb.
we did.
And there's
but the chances of us getting attacked for it, it's like, okay, you found our old shitty probe, and here we are. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
people don't know too is that there's also a no smoking symbol on the satellite, but it says gays in there. So we're just letting people know.
Yeah, it's definitely an imprint of its time.
We are a hetero. I think.
But if anybody finds Earth, you can blame Carl Sagan, by the way, because
I think it also says no fat chicks on it too.
It better say Earth chicks are hot, okay? Because that's definitely it to the comment. But all in all, it's all fun. I can't see anything negative about it, except that it's going to get really serious when Congress is basically being, I don't know how much they're going to tell us, but it's sure going to be interesting. I hope people are listening just for the no shit factor, because it's 80 years in the making of us and so many wars and all of this and thousands upon thousands of documented, and we're not talking about I saw something in the sky. There are way more. Look at Lynn and I
don't think it was like such a big issue though. Like, meaning I don't think most of the politicians actually care about hiding it either though. Really.
But it wouldn't. But that's just saying if it's little green men. This is things that the Defense Department has had to admit that they cannot mess with.
That is the
if you knew that there was a flying weapon, right? So it's been a real issue for 80 years, and they have never stopped investigating it. They had active programs to debunk it. Project Blue Book was a 2-parter. The part that they gave to the report is the public, and the report that they gave the military, and they are not the same.
What I'm saying though is I don't think the actual I don't think most of the actual politicians actually care about. It's like you were saying, what's going to show that they lied to us? Most of them, no, not anymore. I mean, the majority of them just got there last week, so they don't have a. Some of the.
I mean, everybody's going to take it different. The war hawks are going to maybe try to use it as a reason to fund some of, Trump had it right when he was talking about the Space Force.
Yeah.
But honestly, we already have a Space Force. And
I'm
people in space.
You're going to have a whole bunch of people. The best thing, I mean this good and bad, the best thing about politicians is that they know how to manipulate a situation to get them more power. And that's I'm sure that's all they care about.
And you know what? If getting this information get somebody, some more Defense Department contracts, I'm kind of all for it. And, I don't think shooting one down would actually be a bad thing. I really don't. I don't think they're manned, and I don't think anybody's going to be angry. They're just going to be like, dang, those angry monkey people, they shot down our shit again. I mean, really. It's just going to be fun.
There's some form of EMP or something. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know exactly how you would, considering we can't even catch it. But it doesn't matter. I just think that it'll be interesting. I'm curious. I'm not all in, I'm very skeptical, just like I am with everything that I can't,
You
taste,
should be
touch, or
skeptical. Everybody should be skeptical, and even to a point where 90%, for me, 90% of all the alien UFO topic is absolute crap. The abduction people. There's even people who think Bigfoot is an alien. I mean,
you don't know he's
there are
not.
people out there. Yeah, I mean,
You
he's
don't
this
know
is my
he's
brother,
live.
but most things are crap, and there's a nugget of truth in everything. Well, no, there's not in everything, but there is in this, and I hope they feed us a whole box of nuggets.
Yeah, again, yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. The thing that I'm almost most surprised by, though, is that you don't know the date of this hearing.
Oh, it's
I've
June.
I've
Oh,
asked
I
you
think
like
it's.
4 or 5 times, and every time you're like, "Oh, I think it's like June something." I'm like, "Isn't this like
Oh,
your Hanukkah, Christmas, and
I'll have
Kwanzaa?"
it. I'll have every electronic device in my house tuned to autoplay and record when the date comes around.
Right? But
But it,
I'm
it
like, it's
but at
coming
this
up. Like,
point,
I can tell you that Ratchet and Clank is coming out June 10th. Like, I've got
yeah,
that, and I don't even care that much about Ratchet and Clank.
yeah. You read video game news too much.
I
But
just know a date. I can tell you, like, the Seahawks camp also starts June 17th. But, like, again, I don't
yeah,
even
I can
care.
tell you what TV shows my dad likes, but if you ask me his birthday, I couldn't tell you.
I'm
That's
just,
how
I'm
much of an
just,
asshole I am.
I'm just surprised. Yeah, you don't have this date like etched on the
Tattooed on my
wall.
body, yeah.
Yeah, like,
Well, remember there was a date like this before, and it just so happened to be the day before 9/11. Eat that shit right there.
shit. See, it's gonna. Are you saying that June there might be a bad attack or?
If there is some kind of horrible thing that distracts, and now they don't have to get to this briefing, um, and that's not a joke, by the way. If you look up the day before, um,
Yeah, I'm sure.
or
Yeah,
it was the
yeah.
day after. It may have
I
been the
believe
day
you. I
after. I
believe you.
can't remember. No, but it really was. It was either the day before or the day after that 9/11 happened. There was supposed to be a similar briefing
But I don't
years
think,
ago.
like, if they were though, like, going to, I mean, I think they would just postpone it because they postpone crap all the time. Like, I'm saying, like, if they were just trying to like hide it, they just
Yeah,
keep
and this
postponing
briefing,
it.
that in the past, it wasn't a part of a bill. It wasn't an appropriation. It wasn't a hearing that had to do with the Defense Department. It was more of a testimonial addressing of Congress or and the Senate with all these military people and all this stuff coming to tell them of their experiences, the experience with U.S. government, and some of them were very legitimate, and some of these people were absolute kooks.
Love it.
So
I love every
yeah,
one
this
of
is
them.
this is completely different. This is an addressment from the government to the government on the books and in a bill. So it's quite different than the previous time.
It would be interesting. I also wonder if they will attach that into like a funding of Space Force at some point as well,
As
where.
long as I get a laser gun, like you said.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, they do have to do these like with military and things like that to justify certain expenditures. And I wonder, like, if if you had someone smart who could say, okay, cool, but we need some sort of reason why we need to continue to fund and increase funding for like Space Force or something. I wonder if there's also some kind of tie-in that you could do with that as well. But anyway, that's it for us. I have to pee really bad, and
Yeah, and it's raining like a dog. I'm so lightning is
oh
about to
yeah, I need
start.
to get off my because I love storms.
I probably have
Anyway,
a window open.
thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate you and love you. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.